Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Sony Pictures Animation's The Emoji Movie. Which, may I say, out of all the animated films that I've seen pass through, never has there been one that received so much hate as much as this, where critics and the public would give it such massive backlash again and again and again with every new announcement they make about it, plus the fact that it actually does collect a whole bunch of dislikes to the point that it really is pretty impressive when you actually see it on YouTube or any other form of social media. But this all happened ever since the day that Sony Pictures would announce that they would make an animated film about emojis. And here we are today, where the movie decided to reveal its sickening face into the theaters. So, may I ask you all, now that Sony finally released the movie, should we all decide to go and actually give it a chance and apologize to Sony Pictures for the internet being so mean? Or do we finally have proof to justify all this hate and to finally declare this as one of the worst animated films of all time? Whoa!
Ever since the trailer was released, audiences would cry out that the film completely ripped off two films, Disney's Wreck-It Ralph and Pixar's Inside Out. This statement actually turns out to be very true. It's as if the writing knows that it's not talented enough to create a good original story, so it would steal elements from others. However, the way it does it is like it doesn't even comprehend how it works there. With Wreck-It Ralph, it's the concept of a digital world where the electronic components would come together and hang out. But instead of an arcade with video game characters, it's a smartphone with emojis, and the other games are instead apps. As for Inside Out, it's when it would also look into the real world where the smartphone belongs to Alex, who has a crush on Addie. However, here's why they don't work here. The Wreck-It Ralph part was done to shamelessly promote random apps like Candy Crush, Just Dance, Dropbox, Spotify, and more, and for the Inside Out bit, well, the movie does have some side plots with Alex and with Jean's parents, but it's so poorly crafted that there's little to no connection with each other, and it ends up being pointless filler. However, there is one other movie that not many people spotted that this film completely ripped off in order to form its story, and that is Smurfs the Lost Village. Allow me to explain. You have this world where everybody only has this one character trait or emotion, while the main character is more of an outcast because it's not quite sure it knows its own identity. So with the help of its friends, it's now on a mission to go to forbidden lands unlike they've ever seen to end up with a preachy message of being yourself and don't put a label on you of being one thing. In this case, it's like if the writers took a previous draft of Smurfs and changed a few things to claim it as its own. But this time being much worse with a plot that's painfully predictable where it makes the movie feel much longer, a message that's trying way too hard to get in audiences' heads, and the humor is so bad and cringeworthy that even Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2 was a funnier film than this. If there's one group of people that I really do feel sorry for in this, it has to be the artists and animators. I understand why they have to take this job. It looks good on their portfolio that they worked at a major animation studio. But it's just the material that they have to work with is just garbage. Just the ideas that are brought up visually would make anyone question how any executive would think this is acceptable to put it on screen. For example, with the character designs, all it did is just take an emoji, stick some arms and legs into it, and repeat that with everyone in this film except for a few others that have a different style. As for the backgrounds, eventually with all the different app worlds, they start to blend together to bring you this generic digital world or generic real world.
Where am I?
Candy Crush. Divine. Sweet.
Tasty. Delicious.
Like I said before, these artists are only doing their job to make their resume look nice, and do the best they can with the material that they're given. The way the characters move is a bit on the cartoony side, but it's mostly smooth. It's just too bad that the materials they had to work with are such poor quality that I'm sure their talent are worth much more than anything produced in that deadbeat studio. In fact, it's embarrassing to look at how it tries to visually cram in apps like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If there's one thing that I am shocked about this feature, it's that it's actually mean-spirited. Like, everyone in this movie is an absolute jerk. Since it tries desperately hard to cram in the message of being yourself, everybody around Gene in Textopolis would give him such a hard time for being different. And, like the Smurfs, the only way they accept you is by having one emotion or just one look. The only one that stands out among them is a poorly drawn piece of crap that spews out jokes that no one with a sense of humor would think it's funny.
Should we wash our hands?
No. We're number 2.
As for the central characters, they are so bland that their purpose is to fit their generic role and adding nothing to the feature at all. Well, they do try, but it serves no purpose. As for the others,
Yay. It's almost too thrilling for words.
in fact, the voice acting is also noticeably bad. It sounded like the actors are invested a lot more in their check than their performance, and they don't even put in any sort of effort into this. This movie is so universally hated ever since the world first heard of the concept that Sony was making a movie about emojis that it's no longer an opinion that the Emoji Movie is bad. It's a fact. And when the movie was released, it turned out to be far worse than anyone could ever imagine. This would have to be some of the worst writing used in an animated feature. A story that blatantly rips off films like Wreck-It Ralph and Inside Out with no originality. A highly mean-spirited tone, terrible humor, a message that, coming from this movie, feels hypocritical, soulless advertising placed everywhere like Candy Crush, Just Dance, Spotify, and more, an utterly despicable need to be cool with the young crowd, a cast of such hateable characters, lazy voice acting, and to top it all off, animation that is conceptually so bad that no professional studio would ever allow it on the big screen. In fact, 2017 in general is the prime example of everything wrong with Sony Animation for both in the creative and business side. No matter how much small profits they've made, they killed what little reputation they had left. It's already taking effect on their future projects, and no sustainable franchises to keep them afloat once Hotel Transylvania is over. It's sad, but there are now more points than not that show that Sony Pictures and the well-being of the artists there are better off if Sony Animation would f*** this movie! In its current state, it's a company that will be forever known to make one of the worst animated features of all time. Well, of course it gets the Animat seal of garbage. That's as predictable as the movie itself. But the big message to get from all this is that yes, it really is that bad. So with that said, f*** this movie!
Well. Now I know some of you are a bit disappointed that I didn't give this a 0 out of 10 or anything like that. But it truly did justify that it is one of the worst, am I right? Yes. Now, one thing I know of how people would react to the Emoji Movie is that they always tell it to just go kill itself. Like, I've heard a lot of people say that, oh, the Emoji Movie should just go jump off a cliff. Well, ladies and gentlemen, do not worry, because I am here to deliver! Come on now! For once, you'll actually go and please an audience for once! You know, I'm never a fan of these walking the plank style executions. They just delay the inevitable and they take forever to just go. Oh my god! Okay, I swear I didn't mean to do that, but hey, as long as it works, right? Yes, yes. Thank you.